Who do you see riding across the USA? Who camps out on the open range and who stays warm by the campfire?
Well, I want to welcome everybody to this new podcast that I've got going here. This is Slablog, the Slablog podcast. I've forgotten which number it is, and I don't really care these days. But my guest today is James Bridge-Butler. James, do you prefer James, or do you go by a shortened version of that normally, Jim or Jimmy?
I prefer James. I don't
James. Okay, that's fine. I just didn't know. A lot of people. My oldest brother, his name is Ronald, but he goes by Ronnie. We call him Ronnie.
Yeah.
Well, you probably don't see my image. Do you see my picture?
I've got just a photo of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I tested this with my brother yesterday, and I don't know. It's maybe because I'm running it through my audio interface that the image is not up, or maybe I don't have it turned on. But it doesn't matter. We're just doing the audio anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I'll turn mine off.
But James comes to us from the UK, from across the pond here, and this is my first interview with someone outside of the U.S. I had a British person I interviewed a few episodes ago, Ian Scobie, who has been in the U.S. for probably longer than a decade working here, but he still speaks the lingo. And
yeah,
when he goes to rallies, he wears this kilt and everything. You know?
Yeah, he didn't sound like he'd integrated that much.
No. Well, getting back to you, I don't know what you want to talk about today. I don't know if you have a favorite discussion thing that you like to talk about, or if you would just like to answer my questions, or what. Do you have something you have specifically in mind you wanted to talk about?
No, not particularly. I could talk about bikes for hours. So.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, so I'm happy to be led by yourself.
Well, what about you? Still have your 1150R?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still got the Rockster. It's the fourth one I've had.
Oh, really? Did you go? Did you go through the regular 1150Rs and now you're with the Rockster, right?
No, I bought my first Rockster in 2004, and I don't actually think I've ridden an 1150R, the standard version, over the years. I've ridden most of BMW's output over the years, mostly as demo bikes or loan bikes.
Right.
And I've had 4 Rocksters and a K12R myself.
Well, I currently I've got it all taken apart now because I'm repainting the body parts. But it's a twin cylinder, the F650 GS. That's actually an 800cc. You know.
Yes, I've ridden one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been my little baby for 10 years now, almost, and I really like it.
That must be one of the early ones.
It was it's a 2010 model. It was pretty early. I think it came out a year before that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And
old now, blimey. I didn't think it was that old.
It's a great bike. I've been all over on it, but the 1150s, I think you and I, we only know each other because of the 1150 and the forum that we frequented, or still do, the 1150R forum.
That's correct, yeah. The 1150R forum, which is a bit dead at the minute, which is unfortunate.
Well, yeah, I think a part of it is Doug's having problems with a lot of spam, and it's been down, and a lot of people drop off just from just boredom, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it needs an injection of people, I think, to keep talking about stuff. We discussed the 1150 almost to death.
Yeah. Well, that's our first. Most of us, that's our first love. That was the first bike I bought after being off bikes for like 15 years, and that was the first bike I bought. And I got on the forum and met everybody.
Wow. Wow.
But I don't know if you're aware of the bash that we still have every year. We even organized a physical bash where we all get together that had that bike.
Yeah, I've organised similar meetings myself in the UK for another forum, actually a couple of forums. We even had a Rockster meetup once.
Oh yeah, do you go out and camp? How do you do that there?
Yeah, I've done a couple of camping weekends. We did a thing called the Memorial Meet.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit of a story there. One of the forums I was on, Visordown, it was called. Quite a big forum this day, one of the bigger of the UK forums. Bit of a somber tale. I had a couple of people die in sort of the first year. And this was sort of people had started to realise that although you could put a face to a name on the forum, you didn't really know anybody until you got together with them and drunk some beer together.
Yeah. That's the way it was with us. We were.
Yeah.
It was amazing the difference. A lot of times, the difference in the perception of somebody, and then when you actually meet them,
Absolutely, it makes a huge difference to how you read another person's words if you've met them in person.
Right.
When the first really popular person on this forum had a bike crash and unfortunately died, a lot of people said, I really wish I got to know him. I really wish I'd met him. So I organised a big meetup. Initially, it was just a ride out, 20 miles worth or so, from central London to Donington Park, which in the UK is a 3-hour ride because of the traffic and the road systems. Yeah. And I'm proud to say we got about 70 people, and we got them all there without anybody getting lost in a group ride, which was quite an achievement on the day at the time. And it went from strength to strength. We had that every year, and every year we had a 5-minute period where we just sat and remembered the people we couldn't talk to, the people we couldn't see anymore, both to do with bikes and in our personal lives, and then got on with the business of meeting up with everybody else. So the first few years we did it, basically threads on the forum saying, I'm coming to the Mem meet. I want to meet you in particular, whoever, whatever, are you going? Which was great to see because people were actually getting together and chatting, and then some lifelong friendships came out of that, which is really good. And I love it. And I haven't done one for a few years, but the same idea is still around. The other forum I'm on mostly, they do an annual meetup, and a lot of them, I haven't done one of those ones yet. Mm-hmm. I keep meaning to. They keep doing it around track day, and I don't do track days anymore. I used to, but the Rockster isn't a great bike on track.
Right.
If I go to a track day, I know I'd want to go out on the track. I wouldn't want to sit around watching, and I don't want to put myself in that position because I'm not as good as I used to be.
Well, the insurance companies now, they have a question. They ask you, do you do track days on your bike?
Yeah, I think they do, yeah.
But getting back to the 1150 get-together, we had our first bash back in 2004, I guess it was. And the guy whose idea it was to get together died in before the bash, he died in a homemade ultralight airplane crash.
Yes, I think I heard of it.
And he didn't get to make it, so we did the T-shirt, and everything was in memory of him. But
that's what I love about the bike forums. You get this genuine sense of community out of them, out of a shared interest.
Yeah. Well, what about your name? I hope that's not a statement about your culinary skills.
It is, yes.
At one time, we would talk about you at some of the meetings. I said, this rice burner, anybody know who that is? And they said, well, I think it has a reference to Japanese bikes or something,
That's actually where it came from. Yeah, when I first got onto the internet on a forum called Visordown, which the first forum I was kind of on, I'd only had a Japanese bike for a few years, and before I bought it, it was a ZXR 400, the little Ninja. Before I bought that, I'd always said to myself, I won't buy a Japanese bike. I like European or British bikes. And so when I went on the forum and was looking for a name, it was kind of a joke that I grabbed that name. because I know that rice burner is an American term for Japanese bikes and cars.
Yeah, it's
where it's come from.
It's because we it's often it's a derogatory term, rice.
Yep.
Something to do with a rice rocket. They call them rice rockets. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But great bikes. Cycle Rob on the forum. I don't know if you've ever talked to him.
I've not spoken to him. I've we've chatted on the forum. I don't know him any.
Yeah, Cycle Rob is an accomplished mechanic. He's I don't know if he's got the degree or not, but he is an electrical and mechanical engineer. He's a genius when it comes to that. And I've worked with him extensively on my bikes because we lived pretty close together in Georgia. And Cycle Rob, his whole career was mechanic work on Japanese bikes. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah, all the Japanese bikes for 25 or 30 years. That's what he worked on. And then he buys the BMW for himself.
That tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what about your riding there? What you don't? Do you have mountains there? Curvy roads.
We have lots of curvy roads, not necessarily in mountain ranges. Although every mountain range in the UK that we do have does have very good curvy roads. I was up in Scotland at the beginning of September. My girlfriend and I took a Ford Mustang hire car up to Scotland for a week, 10 days I think it was, and had lots of fun up in the hills driving that. That was good fun. We were supposed to come to the States actually in May, which is why we ended up hiring the Mustang, because we were going to hire a Mustang in the US for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Do the Pacific Northwest. But because that was cancelled, we thought, well, we're not going to get any other form of holiday, but we can still hire the car, which was fun to drive. I can see the attraction.
Yeah,
they are thirsty.
And speaking of the Pacific Northwest, I did a trip up. I didn't go. I've been to Washington and up into Canada out there in the West, but on this my latest trip out there, I went up to just the bottom of Oregon. I cut across the bottom of Oregon and headed back down through Utah. But that riding up in Washington State and Oregon and Idaho, that whole area is just a dream. It's just wonderful. It's just great.
It's lovely. I've been up there. I stayed with some family friends in Idaho when I was about 15, before I was driving or riding bikes on the road. And I do remember the beautiful forests and mountains and the hills, the lakes and stuff. And this is why I wanted to go there with an interesting vehicle. I didn't want to hire just a plain, Ford hire car or something. I wanted something interesting.
Right.
And who was it? Someone on the forum, Mark Sweatmark from the forum, was going to actually lend me his Rockster.
Yeah, right.
So I could get some riding in Oregon.
Yeah, when I went out there, he invited me to come and visit him. He was a little farther north than I ended up going, so I had to say, well, I'm not going to make it this trip, and then I headed back east across the southern part of Oregon. But I really wanted to go on up. I was just so tired by the time I got up there. I was ready.
I bet you it's a fair distance.
Yes, it is, and I don't know if you've been here traveling very much, but riding around the United States, people don't understand this. It's immense. It takes me 4 days to get from here back east over to where my daughter lives in Los Angeles. And, camping or moteling every night. That's a long ride every day too, on a bike.
Yeah. We don't get those really, really long rides in the UK simply because the island itself is not that big compared to the States. I've done some traveling in Europe, but again, you're talking about a continent that's, the countries themselves aren't as big. I mean, I'm sure somewhere like Texas is bigger than France, geographically speaking. Yeah.
Well, have you been down into Austria, Italy, into those areas?
No, I haven't. I have a place in France I go to most years on the bike, run by a sort of long weekend of biking, run by a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. That's in the middle of France, in the flatlands. Not much hills, but lots of twisties.
Yeah, lots of beautiful scenery.
Yeah, exactly. And I've travelled through Spain in a van a couple of years ago. Just dumped my life and went travelling for a bit. And not with a bike, unfortunately, but found a lot of nice bike roads, especially up in the mountains.
Well, I'm going to take a little break here for a sponsor.
Okay.
Ironically, my sponsor is Jasmine Rice, and it goes right along with rice bran. So I'm gonna cut here and then come right back. Jasmine Rice, it's so good I had to sing it twice. Get yourself some of that Jasmine Rice, sold at supermarkets everywhere. Jasmine Rice. Jasmine Rice. Okay, I wonder who that guy was singing. Anyway, gosh, I don't know what to ask you. How old are you?
I'm mid-40s, about 47.
Okay, you're the age of my children. That's kind of I mean, when you think about it, it's weird. But when you're talking bike to bike, bike person to bike person, the age doesn't really matter that much. Until you
doesn't. No.
You get to riding with each other, then you can kind of notice some differences in the age, abilities, and all. But as far as discussing bikes, but have you always ridden? Did you ride as a little kid?
I started riding. My dad rode bikes in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Quick. Sort of moved on to other things, and then in the early 80s, there was a lot of train strikes in the UK, and he commuted by train, so he bought himself a bike, and I got to ride that when I was about 9. And if I remember correctly, that was a Yamaha RD400 two-stroke twin, which I kind of rode around the garden in first.
Yeah.
And, I expressed an interest. I said, this is fun. I'd like to do it again. And that Christmas, I've got 2 brothers, by the way. I'm the eldest of the 3. That Christmas, we got a motorcycle, a little mini bike for Christmas, which was a 50cc Puck, German make,
mm-hmm.
with a semi-automatic gearbox. And we rode that until it died. I think actually still got it. I think what's happened is the exhaust has coked up completely, and it ran it for about 10 years without doing anything to it, other than putting oil and petrol in. And then it just, for one day, just stopped starting. And we had a lot of people look at it over the years. No one's actually managed to get it to fix properly. But it's either a broken wire in the loom, which is 4 wires wide, or something very, very simple like the exhaust is completely utterly coked up, which I think might be the issue. No one's looked at that yet. So one of my plans, if I ever get myself a full garage and can settle down and do stuff, is to get that bike working again. My first bike, I will get it back. I will get it going again.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, absolutely. Well, gosh.
And then after that, I basically sort of did a couple of learner bikes. In the UK, we can ride. Back then, we could ride on under 125cc bikes,
mm-hmm.
And on a learner license, and then we passed our test and could move up. I did a couple of tests in order to get my license, failed the first 2, passed on the 3rd time. The first big bike I rode on the road was probably my mother's Moto Guzzi V50.
Yeah.
500cc V-twin. And then I bought myself a Ducati Panther.
Oh,
wow. It wasn't the original Panther, the regular Panther,
mm-hmm.
which is swoopy fairinged race bike on the road. This was the touring version. I found it in the classifieds, and they're actually quite rare. I've no idea how I ended up with it, really. And I had that for about 4 years, crashed it, rebuilt it. It came out very nice after the rebuild. It was a gloss black with it's difficult to describe. It looked in equal parts like a Laverda, a Guzzi, and a Ducati, and because of all the parts, the various different bits and pieces I put on it.
Yeah.
And we parked it up in several places. One of the places I used to go to regularly is the Isle of Man for the TT racing and the Manx. And when I took that bike there and parked it on the prom with all the other bikes, it was quite funny to watch people sort of walk past and look at it. And, at the TT, you've got lots of people in there with lots of bikes.
Yeah.
And you would get people who walk past, go, look at it again, and then turn around, come back and start examining it. And you could see them, the confusion in their face going, what the hell is this thing?
You'd think they would be familiar with Moto Guzzi, the style of the engine.
The Ducati. Yeah, it was a Ducati engine with... I had the Laverda, the adjustable bars that you put on the Laverda Jota came with, and the Mark 1 Le Mans Guzzi fairing on it, that little bikini fairing. I don't know if you remember them. Yeah. So just a little tiny headlight fairing.
Yeah.
And because the tank on the bike was a square shape in profile, it didn't look like a Ducati.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Even though it had a Ducati engine, it didn't look like a Ducati. And at one point, I think the first year I had it, I didn't have any stickers on it. It was effectively unbranded. So it was quite amusing to watch. And after that, I started having electrical problems with it. And then I bought my Kawasaki 400, which I then kept for about 10 years and used for everything. You use that bike all year round.
Yeah.
Did about 54,000 miles, I think, I had on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very good example of that bike basically taught me how to ride quickly.
Do you have mechanicking skills? Do you do your own maintenance and stuff?
I do as much as I can. I'm almost ashamed to admit it, but I have a degree in engineering.
Okay.
But I do as much mechanicking as I feel comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with working on gearboxes, for example.
Yeah. And
I'm not hugely comfortable pulling bearings out, although I can do front wheel bearings. But steering head bearings, I tend to let somebody else do them who knows what they're doing. But you learn. You try it once, and the main reason I'm not happy doing things myself is because it's my bike, and if I mess it up, it's the only bike I've got. I'm stuck. So if I take it to somebody else to do it, they can lend me a bike and I can keep traveling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got a few skills, and what I can't figure out, I'm in a position to call Cycle Rob, or when I was in Georgia, he'd actually come over and get me out of a jam and stuff.
Yeah.
But most of the basic maintenance, I can manage to get through it.
Yeah. The BMWs are very easy to maintain, it has to be said. That's one of the reasons I bought the 1150 when I bought it. I bought it brand new. At the time, I was riding a 550 Zephyr Kawasaki,
mm-hmm.
and my 400. So the 400 for fun and on nice days, and the Zephyr for commuting. I was doing about 50 miles worth of commuting each way, which might not be a lot to you, but that's in the UK. That's a long commute.
Yeah, that's same. 50 miles would be pretty long.
Yeah.
Out here in the country, I'm down here in Alabama where I have my house now. I'm retired. It's where my family is. My brothers and sister all lives here. But a 50-mile commute is nothing down here because you gotta travel a long ways living out in the country. But in Atlanta and in a big city like that, 50 miles is, that's a lot, because it already takes you an hour and a half to 2 hours to go 20 miles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when it's city riding, it adds up. You're traveling. Your average travel speed is a lot slower.
Right.
I was doing 50 miles from basically the south coast of England into central London every day. And I deliberately bought the BMW Rockster because it was as fun to ride as my 400 and as easy to maintain and comfortable as my Zephyr. And quicker, as quick as both of them, as quick as either of them.
Yeah.
Rocksters, a lot of people in the UK ride the inline 4 Japanese bikes or the big Triumphs.
Mm-hmm.
And having a bike that does 150 miles an hour is sort of almost the standard for most UK bikers. But our speed limit is 70 miles an hour. So I tend to buy bikes that will do 3-figure speeds, but which are comfortable and more at home below that.
Yeah. Well,
and it means that from my point of view, it means that I'm buying the performance I need and want, rather than buying performance I don't use.
Yeah. Well, back to the long distances traveling here, touring across country, you see an awful lot of Honda Goldwings here, and and those bikes are the ones that people get when they want to travel, 1,500 miles across Kansas out to Colorado or somewhere, and in comfort. It's pretty fair. It's really comfortable. They usually have a trailer and they got their wife on the back.
Yeah, I've seen those. We get those here as well, especially in Europe.
Yeah, but the 1150 I rode across country 3 or 4 times, and then this little one I've got, I've done it several times, and the smaller bike is definitely a disadvantage as far as the weight and dealing with the big trucks and stuff on the big highway. So I tend to stay on state and local highways and stuff. Yeah,
that's the difference, isn't it?
It is. And the 1150, for such a small, agile-looking bike, it was well planted. It was it had enough weight that it made a good highway bike too.
Yes, I agree with you. The 1150s are very solid on the road, but very planted, like you say. And again, that's one of the reasons I like them, and one of the reasons I bought one. And one of the reasons I don't like the 1200s, the newer ones. They're a lot lighter, but they don't have that same planted feel.
Right.
Especially GSs. The GS, when the 1200 GS first came out, and I've ridden one. I've ridden a few, I think. The front end just feels like it's dancing all the time. Whereas with the Rockster, it just feels like it's there. It's reliable. It's dependable. You know what it's going to do.
Yeah. Talk to me just a second about this riding on the other side of the road from us. You said you had ridden or driven some in the U.S. How do you have a problem adjusting back and forth like that?
I haven't driven in the US. I've driven in Europe and I've ridden in Europe, which is riding on the right side of the road. It's, for me personally, it's something I don't have a huge amount of difficulty with. And I think that's mainly because when I was riding, when I was sort of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, those first few years of riding bikes, at the time I was riding my modern bike and my father's British-Butler collection. So you're jumping from a bike where the big gearbox lever could be on either side of the bike, depending on which. So I think I picked up that adaptability quite early on in my riding, and I've managed to translate that into not being phased when I'm on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I do these days, which helps enormously, is I've managed to get the mirrors on my bike set up so that the outside one is looking at the next lane over, and the near side mirror is looking behind me. When I go to Europe, I just twist the mirrors ever so slightly. And that means that when I glance in the mirror, which is something I'm doing almost unconsciously all the time.
Right.
If I'm looking behind me, that helps me to remember that, I'm on that side of the road. And if I look in my left mirror on Europe and I'm looking at cars going away from me, it's a reminder. I think I've been to Europe about 10, 15 times now. I will admit that once or twice I've pulled out and ended up on the wrong side of the road for a junction. Did it once in the van, which was scary for a second until you see someone coming, you think, hang on there, and then, no, I'm on the wrong side of the road.
Right. Well, I've been watching years ago, I watched a few seasons of Midsummer Murders, and with John Nettles, and I'm watching it again. I'm up to season 9 now, but I see those guys with their, driving on the different sides of the roads and the little country lanes. It doesn't matter that much, except they quite often come up on another car and they have to swerve over into the woods and stuff.
Yes, that's one of the dramatic moments in Midsummer, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it really puts me to sleep sometimes. But I tell my brothers, you ought to watch this if you ever feel like you can't sleep, because I start watching one of these and I'm immediately very sleepy. Idyllic.
It's
beautiful, idyllic little towns in England.
Yeah.
But there's like 5 murders every episode.
Yeah. You don't want to live anywhere near Midsummer. Funnily enough, that's filmed. It's funny you bring that. That's filmed very near to where I grew up.
Oh, really? Yeah.
In Oxfordshire, yeah. I grew up in a place called Henley-on-Thames. Which is the south end of Oxfordshire, and I, every now and again, if I do catch Midsummer, every now and again I see a village and go, hang on, I recognise that village.
Yeah,
it's all filmed around Oxford.
Yeah, so I guess it's all made up. There's no real Midsummer, no Badger's Drift, and all those things.
Unfortunately, not.
Yeah,
it's funny though you say about the driving on the other side of the road. It is. The ability to switch from one side of the road to the other, to switch your mindset from being on the left to being on the right, or vice versa, is actually something that is quite important to be able to do. I mean, I've one accident I was aware of on one of the weekends I did in France. An English guy riding a bit quickly. He was riding quickly. He was riding it maybe a little bit beyond the speed he should have been riding at.
Yeah.
Went round a corner a little quickly, right-hander. So he's in the middle of the road, in the apexing in the middle of the road, and drifts wide. So he's drifting into the left side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Frenchman coming the other way, on the left side of the road, sees him, panics. The French guy pulls into the verge. The English guy does the same thing, but because he's panicking, he does it in his brain goes verge equals go left. Ended up having a massive head-on accident, basically off the tarmac in the verge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because that switch from left to right is something that's quite difficult to do if you're not used to it and if you're concentrating on other things.
Yeah,
your mind, when you have an incident come up, your mind goes to automatic and does things it would do normally at home.
Yeah, the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the thing. Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's very difficult to train out, and I think you almost have to practice your knee-jerk reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that, I'm one of these people who tries to think about my biking, tries to think about what I'm doing consciously, so that I can make myself a little better when it comes to unconsciousness.
Well, what about if I were to make a trip over there and rent a bike in England, where would be a recommendation to focus on riding for if I was only there for like a week?
You could do a lot worse than going to Scotland. Scotland, Wales is good. Wales tends to get a bit wet, and so does Scotland. Actually, both of them are on the. They're basically on the west coast,
mm-hmm.
especially the coast of Scotland, and the weather changes very quickly. You tend to see people riding all day round wearing their one-piece baby grow oversuits, simply because you get 10 minutes of sunshine, 10 minutes of rain, 10 minutes of sunshine, 10 minutes of fog. You get all 4 seasons in a day. But the roads are unbelievably good. Not necessarily good quality tarmac, but the views, the corners, it's a biker's playground. And basically anywhere outside of cities and towns.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Americans are of Irish descent, and I have
mm-hmm.
friends who are musicians and such, and they tend to go to Ireland. They always want to go to Ireland because of the heritage, I guess. And I was wondering if that was kind of an area that would be nice to ride in.
I've never been there. My brother has. He went a couple of times. He was married to an Irish lass for a while. They went to visit a family there, and he says it's great biking, but it rains all the time. There is a reason Ireland is green. It's a bit like the west coast of Scotland in that it's on the Atlantic coast, so you get with the weather. When it comes in from the Atlantic, it doesn't come in by halves.
Yeah.
If it's going to rain, it's going to rain, but then it'll, you might get 2 hours of beautiful sunshine and clear skies, and that's when the place just glows, according to him. It's somewhere I'd like to go. I just haven't gone there yet.
Yeah. That's like me. I've never been up to the Northeast here, up into Vermont and that area that's supposed to be really nice roads. Pennsylvania, Vermont. Yeah. That's the one area of the U.S. I haven't ventured up to.
All right.
Well, this has been nice, but amazingly, we've gone 35 minutes here. And it goes by quickly when you're actually sitting talking.
It does. When you're sitting chatting on the subject that you're familiar with and like, then you can talk for hours, can't you?
Yeah. Well, I hope you are able to get over here sometime and visit and ride some bikes over this way.
It's one of the things I really want to do. I have to admit, I'm slightly cagey about visiting the US at the moment due to certain political controversies. But I'm hoping to get over there at some point and come and see some of you guys off the 1150 forum. Yeah,
but it's politically and it's like everything else. If you get out away from people, you get out away from the city. It's just a beautiful rides everywhere, and you get past that. It's not really as bad as I guess it's probably made out.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is.
But we invite you anyway to come whenever you have an opportunity.
Well, thank you. And obviously, if you ever come over this side of the pond, let me know.
Yeah. I spent 2 years in Austria when I was young. I was at 20 years old. I lived in Austria as a missionary, and
wow.
I always wanted to go back there and ride a motorcycle because I met a couple there when I was there who were touring around on a BMW motorcycle. Mm-hmm. So after I came home, I always wanted to go back to Austria, northern Italy area, and ride around some.
Whereabouts in Austria were you?
I was in Salzburg and Vienna for a while, but I loved Salzburg and over toward the other side at Vorarlberg. I was over there, Bregenz.
Oh, yeah. Those towns. Mm-hmm. Lovely. I used to go skiing in Austria regularly. Mm-hmm. A place called St. Anton.
Well, they had the Olympics in Innsbruck that year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, James, I appreciate you coming on here and being willing to do this. This is groundbreaking territory for me using Skype, so we'll see how it works out. And now maybe some of these other guys from Australia or Germany or somewhere can call me and we can talk.
That'd be good. Yeah, you're doing it on the online. Yeah. I can make out the quality is good. You're certainly coming through very clearly at this end.
Yeah.
I hope so. And again, if you want to cover any more ground, just let me know.
Yeah, we don't have to limit it to one discussion. It's always come back for something specific to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'll let you get on with your day, and I appreciate it. And we'll cut it off here. I've got to do my post-production work, and I've got to go lay some tiles in my workshop. I've got things to do also. But anyway, thanks, James.
Thank you and thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just like the rebels, they'll all be history. Tell me, who are the modern cowboys of the day?